Welcome back to another episode of The Sound of Sosa. I have Sam here. He has worked in the restaurant industry for about 20 years. We're going to dive into that, and then we're going to also dive into how, life circumstances can kind of put you at almost an impassable road to have to make the decision. But in our little pre-discussion, I think we both agree that he made the right decision, and that's something that we'll talk about here in a little bit. One thing we were just diving into was ADD and ADHD, how if used correctly or if understood correctly, it could actually benefit people. Um, a band-aid for it until someone can get it under control, I think, is medication, but not a fix all, and it's not a long-term solution at all. I think to help the person train themselves, medication should be used, but then the medication should be ripped away, maybe not ripped away, should be pulled away, so that the person can learn to control it. I know when I was a child, my mother, it took me a long time to remember this and to figure it out too. I knew she had taught me how to kind of like use it as a benefit. And so when I would be learning things with her, she would either play classical music. And then when I would kind of get squirrely and be like, oh, look at that, she'd be like, okay, what were you just thinking of when you just remembered that? Because you're going to use that to remember what you're studying right now. And so it wouldn't necessarily force your brain to kind of course correct, but it would use what was distracting you to as a memory cue. And that helped me anchor a lot of memories. I haven't quite gotten it under control, but is there anything that like you use? Obviously, you probably have it, right? You have ADD, ADHD.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So
It was one of the. I feel like one of the OG Ritalin kids, man. Like I was that kid in class, and it was such an interesting thing, and it was such a huge stigma. I feel like when I was young, like, oh, you're that kid, as to where now, you see it everywhere, and you hear it from everybody. I've got this ADHD. I've got this ADHD, and it really is, man. It can be used as such a crutch, but when you train yourself and you work into systems that really help you, um, it can really be a superpower. Especially doing something like the service industry. I can bounce back and forth in the kitchen, and I can do this, and I can do this, and I can do this, and honestly, that feeds the ADHD, but it also gives me somewhere to output, and it really it can be life altering for sure.
oh, it definitely can be. So I think the hardest part with me is because I lost my mother when I was 21, and it went like bonkers on me, and I couldn't think of how to control it at all. But it's the ability to be able to pop between things right now, and I think it's we see such a rise in it, and I think it's also being overdiagnosed. I think children are hyper. Children need play. They need to get the energy out, and I think we're just like trying to almost force them into a mold that doesn't fit every child. And so with that, you get overprescribing. You get kids who then turn into zombies. And I think that creative part as a child is necessary for the child to figure out what they want to do,
Absolutely.
because it makes them dive into it. It's just such
Well,
a go ahead.
you see things like Facebook Reels and Instagram and TikTok and all that, and we're training the brain to bounce back and forth every 30 seconds. You're not reading a book that takes you a week to read. You're watching a video, and the next 30 seconds you're watching something else. It's chewing gum for the brain, right? So we're not,
Like,
as a society, especially in social media, trying to develop kids or adults into being long-term thinkers. Everything needs to be immediate, right? Even as far as like Amazon, right? You go, well, and my trip to the grocery store, make sure I remember to get everything. Now it's like, oh, I forgot this. It'll be here tomorrow.
yeah,
You know, so fast, everything, and it's wild. Really, just kind of seeing how much we need things and how fast we need them now. I really feel before the internet in school, having to learn how to use the Dewey Decimal System, and, like figure where's the book in the library. I got to get this project done, and there wasn't any. And it was like, oh, imagine if we had this thing that would just give us all the information. and now we have it and we use it to watch these silly videos. And it's just, we're not training our brains to operate in a long-term function, right? Everything has to be fast. It's chewing gum for your brain. There is no sustenance to it.
That is such a good way to put it too, because it really has. I mean, we're getting ourselves away from our more natural way of living, and I think the further that happens, the more problems we're going to see. Because it's great having all these creature comforts and having all these things at our disposal. It's absolutely amazing, and I love it. But it also pulls us away from that natural instinct of, hey, we have to prepare for the future.
Mm-hmm.
When we were roaming around the plains, we were hunting we were hunting to keep meat, to salt meat so that we could have it for winter. Right
Right.
now, there's no notion of that at all anymore because, like you said, you forget something at the store. Oh, let me order it really quick and have it delivered.
Right.
Whether it's
But
groceries to a stick of gum, you know what I mean? You can get it.
and then you see things like the hurricanes going on right now. All these people are not prepared the way they need to be, right? Because you don't stockpile anything. If you don't have to stock up on all this food and all these things, you have more room for stuff. Right? So you got a house full of stuff, no provisions, and then a hurricane comes and all your stuff is washed away and you have nothing to survive with.
No,
Right?
that
Like
cell phone ain't gonna do you no help there.
right. If you don't have electric, if you don't have Wi-Fi, God forbid something happens where there's some sort of cyber attack, right? And we don't have phones or internet. How are we going to communicate? Like if you're not prepared, like you have to realize like it's great to have all these things at my fingertips, and it's great to have that creature comfort, as you said. Um, but if you're not using that intelligently, and you're using that and letting it make you lazy and forgetful, it's just gonna come back around and bite you in the butt. And it's scary to think about, man. But the world's a crazy place right now. So
The world's a very, very crazy place. It's a very scary place.
yeah,
It's really easy to get lost or to get, I guess, the world to get unrepresented in the America spotlight because everything outside of the news looks all hunky dory. Everything seems pretty good because this country hasn't seen war on its soil in hundreds of years. And I think with that, we fall into a lot of first world problems. And I don't mean to say it like that for it to have any connotation around it. It's the truth. I don't think you'll see any of the children that left Ukraine having drug issues. You know what I mean? You'll see, obviously, there's going to be a small population because of availability. But outside of that, it's like we get these problems because we don't have the real world problems to deal with, like having to find food, having to make sure we're
right,
good. And so it creates a whole another framework of issues for society that if society did not prepare for those and understand that those were coming, which we had no idea that it would come from all this. No one, we've never been here before, at least in recorded history. And so with that, we're sitting here trying to like backtrack and trying to fix all these things with band-aids like Adderall, like Ritalin,
yeah.
um, and it's causing a huge issue. And one thing I thought was really, really funny and really, really odd, to speak to the ADHD and kind of throw some history in there, is Nazi Germany was fueled by methamphetamine. That's what made the Blitzkrieg possible. I mean, it's literally the whole entire thing. And I've been talking about this for years, and I was so happy when Joe Rogan had that guy on that did the book on it, because not a lot of people knew that they would use meth to stay up, and they would use heroin to go to sleep. It was the only time that heroin was actually looked at as not a nasty drug was when it was used by the military. Um, and so with that, it's like you had that whole place. They thought meth made them a super country, and then after the 1950s, what going past that, you see ADHD medication pushed like crazy, and now we're back to a point to where the whole population. It's like what there's a couple million prescriptions out there. Here, let me look it up really quick. How many Adderall prescriptions are out there?
There's a
Um,
ton.
yeah,
Shortage, right? The people that actually need it,
yeah,
the
are
people
not able to get it.
trying to better themselves and figure out their systems and get their framework put together, can't even get it because you got a bunch of people abusing it, right? And it's being abused because it's been pushed, right? And now you see all these ads for, oh, you just come online and talk to us and we'll get you a prescription. And it's like, again, quick, easy. You don't have to go and talk to a psychiatrist or a therapist for them to realize, like, oh, there's something wrong here. How can we fix this? Right? It can just be like, oh yeah, like, oh, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. And it's scary to think that something that is that addictive and has that much destructive properties is just so readily handed out.
I'm gonna ask ChatGPT really quick. How many ADHD or ADD scripts were written in 2023 in the United States? Oh, ChatGPT is working slow today. 41 million in 2021. Oh, because it can't
Mm-hmm.
go back that far.
Not
That's
even that.
that's insanity, man.
Right? If
That's
it's
a
a daily prescription, right? Say you're taking one or two daily, or however many you're supposed to take, um, times 41 million. These companies are making money hand over fist. Of course, they're pushing it, right? I mean, all it is, it's profit. The actual cost of drugs, you see these people with diabetes who are struggling to get their medicine because there's astronomical dollar amount put on their medicine to help them get better, right? And the cost is minuscule.
yeah, like 10
You know,
cents.
it's insane, and it's just let's just line the pockets, right? And I just, man,
And they don't care
it's so.
about the side effects on the children.
Hmm?
Like they you're changing the chemical composition of a brain at a very young age, and you're never giving it the chance to fully grow into it. And fortunately for a lot of kids, they'll grow out of that. You know what I mean? But I think if you stuff them on ADHD medication, they're never gonna grow out of it because their brain doesn't know how to actually. It doesn't adapt to what it needs to.
Right. And I mean, I remember being that kid. Like I said, that kid, they didn't get my prescription right the first or the second, or maybe even the third time. I remember that whole zombie phase where you just sit there and stare at a wall, but you weren't bouncing around. And that was like, okay, we're making steps in the right direction, but are we? And eventually, we got it all dialed in and everything was fine, you know? But that takes time, and it's not time that you get back,
Hmm.
right? As a kid, it's just, maybe you miss out on this, maybe you never know.
Yeah.
Um, but it's wild to think that it's just floating around out there so freely now.
And it's like, Nazi Germany thought that made it better, and then look at where we're at now. We're almost on like the same path as where they were. And if you look at the way that we acted, how we were overthrowing democracies and stuff, it's like, wait, what happened there? Operation Paperclip, all that stuff. But it's
Yeah.
like it's just those are all documented true things, and people still look at them as like, oh, that was fictional. It wasn't fictional. We brought over a bunch of high level Nazis and put them in positions of power, and then on top of it, we kind of had a turn of the way we shaped ourselves. But with that, it's like I I don't see it as a long term solution. I think that's what pharma benefits on the most. It makes people stick in a line, and it makes them not want to be creative and think outside of the box. And so it kind of kills capitalism in a long term route because you're gonna have people doing the same things. Yeah, they may get a little better on those things, but you're not gonna have the Steve Jobs making an iPhone. You know what I mean? With that, I think we curb it. And so that's where I think it can become a detriment because one thing I've heard a lot of is how it kills creativity, and it does for some people. It does spark it for others, but I think the majority of people probably do have creativity killed by it, and so you're gonna miss out on a lot of innovations and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so
I wouldn't even say it necessarily kills creativity. It just pulls your focus elsewhere.
yeah,
If you thrive on being a creative person, right, and you're a creator, and you go out and, like, you're doing this podcast, right, and I'm a chef and I like to draw, and I got my partner, she loves to paint and do all these things, and she takes those medicine, I take that medicine, you take that medicine, and it's like, well, I can't create right now because I'm hyper focused on cleaning my house,
yeah,
right? I have to get this laundry done, right? All these flower beds need to be weeded. It lets you focus on that, and that stuff does need to be oh wow, let me try that again. Does need to get done, right? It all needs to get done, but it doesn't allow you to have anything else other than what is on the forefront of your brain at that moment, right? It is supposed to help you dial in, and it is supposed to help you focus, and it's supposed to shut down all the extra chatter, right? And so it can work, right? If you, again, like you had said earlier, you use that to set up systems, to set up processes that work for you to be able to say, I still need to be creative, but maybe I need to do this first.
Yeah.
And so, I need to draw this. I need to cook this dish. It's 7 o'clock at night. I know it takes 3 hours. Let's see how fast we can get it done. I don't want to eat at 10 o'clock, but then you eat at 10:30 and it's delicious, but you've got no laundry done, right? The sheets are still on the bed, and it's just like it's one of those you just got to use it the right way, right? And don't abuse it, because that's how you really end up shooting yourself in the foot.
That's the tricky one for a lot of people, and I fortunately enough have never had the withdrawal symptoms from it from when I would stop it and go back to it, which I thank God for every day. But I've heard that there are absolutely horrible. One thing I have dealt with, because I injured my back when I was 26 years old, and then I hurt my neck when I was 30, and so I have multiple tear herniations in my lower back with multiple herniations on each tear. It's three on one and two on the other. Um, I think some of it has maybe died off, but what happened was the nerve plexuses that leave that spot of the spine and go through the foramen, that the holes that are created by the vertebrae when they stack to each other, with the disc being damaged, that space then decreases, in turn decreasing this foramen space, causing almost constant stimulation on those nerve plexuses, and so it caused bone to be it made the cells think it needed to build more bone, but it for some reason didn't activate the other side of it, the osteoclast, I believe, osteoblast and osteoclast, to reshape it, because like when you break a bone, your osteoblast will build up bone, and then the osteoclast come back and reshape it. But the other part never happened, and so I still do have. I think it's just become almost like I hate to say it, but I'm used to it. It was constant stimulation, and so like with that, they would have to go back in and drill out those areas in order to stop that. And so they first put me on fentanyl, and I remember I woke up one day and I was like super sick. I was puking. I was like, "What is going on? I must have the stomach flu." And then I went to go itch my leg, and I realized the patch came off. And that's when I called my doctor, like, "Hey, you need to take me off of this. I don't know what it is, but it." And that was like 2016, and so like I had no idea what the fuck fentanyl was. I thought it was honestly I thought it was a non-opioid route,
Right.
because that's the way that my doctor usually pointed me. Like if I ever injured something, he'd put me on tramadol, which is
Yeah.
it's a non-opioid pain medication, um, and so he's like, okay, we can put you on these, and that's when he put me on oxys, and I didn't know at the time. I had heard about them, but I was like, okay, it sounds like a low dose. It was only like 10 or 5 milligrams, so I was like, okay, I could do that. And then I realized I was always sleeping. I was like, why the fuck am I so tired all the time? I'm a
Yep.
hyper ass person. And so that's when I'm like, hey, is there something lower we can go to? And that's when he put me on Norco. But I was on those. I've been on them for quite some time, but I fortunately enough, not fortunately, unfortunately enough, I had some experience with another family member who was addicted to them, and it was my mother actually. And so I kind of I knew what those were when I got them, and I was like, okay, so I had to kind of pull myself off of these every so often, and so I try to do about 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and it allows me, and it sucks for those first 2 weeks, like I everything hurts, and but it allows me to not get a full addiction like some people would, and it's a struggle, it really is, but um I
I
think
struggled with the same ones you had.
yeah,
Hurt my back snowboarding, and it was Norco and Tramadol.
yeah,
Uh, and at the time, was the sole breadwinner of the house. Was the only one working. I can't afford to take time to be on my back and
yeah,
to heal. And working 12, 14, 16-hour days in the kitchen. That's the only way I got through.
yeah,
And it got to a point where I'm like, I'm running out of prescriptions early. Um, I'm chewing on them because it's the only thing that's getting me through. And coming out of that and having to um, make the adjustments needed to or not withdraw, but to get myself off of that was awful, absolutely horrendous. And I don't wish that on anybody. It's terrible.
No, it is, and it's like people say, "Oh, that's weak-minded people." That was kind of the mindset years ago, and I think it was Kurt Angle, he won Olympic gold medal while he had a broken neck, and that dude got addicted to Norco. Like that tells you that is one of the strongest minded people on this planet. And I don't care who you are to argue that, because if you can win a gold medal while having a broken neck in wrestling, you are a fucking monster, and you have the ability to override, simple mind games that your mind will play with you. And so for him to get addicted, that says a lot. You know what I mean? Um and so I don't think it should ever be discounted on someone who struggles with that. But if you can find a way to not have yourself addicted, that's going to be the best way on any type of medication. But let's circle back to a little bit on your restaurant kind of life. Um, so I know you had said previously you started out at like an ice cream shop, and like your parents had some influence on your love for the culinary arts and things like that. So let's talk about that a little bit, just like where it began and kind of how your parents helped influence you, because I think that's a huge part, and I think parents could benefit from hearing that with their current
Yeah.
children.
It's kind of funny. I've always enjoyed eating food. I'm a big guy. It doesn't get lost on me, but food was it was always connected to, and it always should be, connected to things that involve family and friends. Whether it's Christmas or Thanksgiving, or a barbecue for someone's birthday, or whatever it is. It's worldwide, and it's food brings people together. Everyone needs to eat. There's not a person out there who doesn't. So growing up with my mom cooked really well. My dad cooked really well. And so there was always some good food around, here or there, wherever it was. Grew up down south. Family would get together. We'd do like a fish fry. It's a lot of really cool stuff. And so I've always been around it. And then my dad started barbecuing,
Oh.
and I was mesmerized by the whole technique, really, of cooking with low heat and smoke, and what it just did to just a piece of meat, with some seasoning on it, and just turned it into something incredible. And that's kind of where it started, and I showed a lot of interest in it. And so Dad would say, "Okay, I'm going to barbecue, and I'll show you. I'll do the meats. You need to figure out the sides." Right. And it was just this opportunity to really be like, oh, okay, like, let's see what I can do. And then it turned into just, kids are watching, Nickelodeon, Cartoon Network. Not to say I didn't, but I was just as much watching Food Network. I was watching Good Eats. I was watching Emerald.
Bam.
The Thrifty Gourmet. All these cooking shows, and man, I was so focused on it, and just watching, like, why are they doing this, and and I questioned everything. And God bless my parents were like, yeah, cook, cook, go ahead. I remember the first seasoning, like, I really found was oregano, and oregano would go on everything, right? Like, doing scrambled eggs, and I'm throwing oregano in, right? There's no salt and pepper in there. It's just eggs and oregano. And my mom would choke it down, and just with a smile, like, it's good. Maybe we should try this next time, and it was cool. And I can't tell you how many times I just absolutely massacred dinner. It was like, we're going to cook dinner. It's like, all right, cool. Burn the shit out of everything. Right. But I was never made, it was like, yeah, you messed up. But I was never like, it was never, you're not going to be allowed to cook again. It was always, we'll try again, and so they really encouraged me to follow something that I was passionate about. And that, between that and my artwork, I had no shortage of people who had my back and were always pushing me to strive to be better. And I really feel like it influenced me a lot, especially with what I wanted to do. I thought for the longest time I was gonna go to culinary school, and then I decided I was gonna play football in high school. And I'm like, nope, I'm going to college to play football. Ask me how many starting games I played. This many. But I thought I was great, right? It
Yeah.
was what I wanted to play football. So I passed up on culinary college, which I don't regret now. I learned a lot having to kind of work my way up from the bottom,
Yeah.
scooping ice cream, slinging hot dogs, making milkshakes, and kind of learning that end, working a drive through, really kind of set me up for the customer service aspect of it, right? Talking to people and, taking orders and doing that type of thing, and the counter service, and then, working into washing dishes and doing prep and serving tables and hosting. And, I've done pretty much anything as far as restaurants go, so I really have an appreciation for the job. And, it's really altered my perspective, I feel like, as someone who's run restaurants and had teams of people that you need to instruct and direct, and opening up a restaurant, doing all these things. It all stemmed from having people who had my back, and really just pushed me to be the best that I could be at what I was doing.
So yeah, so a very strong support system is obviously always going to be crucial, and I think in your story it's exemplified because I know there's a lot of families out there that if a kid burnt something, they're like, okay, you're done cooking, you're not
Right.
cooking anymore, and I think that's almost like a natural instinct. Not because the parents are bad, but because maybe money's tight in that area. Because I know I've had times where I'm like, hey, if I had to cook this right, because if I mess it up, you know, we're just gonna have to eat it. And so definitely, I'm not saying you're a bad parent if you stop your kid, because obviously there's financial situations you got to worry about. But having that support is going to be crucial in every way possible when it comes to a kid doing something, because it could be as easy as a quick scolding for something you think they're doing wrong when they're just trying to express themselves in a way. And I sometimes have to remember that. Like, my daughter's very, very sensitive. She's a Sagittarius, and so she's very emotional. But I'll sometimes she'll be doing something. I'm like, "What are you doing?" And like she thinks I'm yelling at her, but really I'm just trying to figure out what the hell she's doing so I can help her, because it looks like something's about to go really wrong. And she gets all upset about it. And so I sometimes had to remind myself, like, hey, even if it looks like something's going wrong, just try to not get too excited about it, because that could really turn her away from it. Um, so what would you say your favorite thing to do in a restaurant is? I know obviously you like to cook and everything though, but outside of the cooking side of it, what interested you the most that kept you so anchored there?
Man, for me, and it's cooking is always going to be part of it. Watching people enjoy something that you've made, right? You put your heart and soul into creating a menu, right? Then you train your staff. This is how we're going to cook it, and then you get it down, and everybody's firing on all cylinders, right? You got a busy ass Friday night, right? You're stacked. You're on a wait, but all the plates are going out on time. Everything looks good, and you're just watching people have a great time in the dining room. Man, I'll tell you, I don't know what it is, but it just feeds my soul. Right? If I can watch a group of 6 people come in, it's little Janie's birthday, right? And they all come in, they got presents and balloons, and you always worry, right? You bring out a group of people, you're like, man, I hope this experience is going to be good, right? Especially like, oh, I'm the one that suggested the restaurant today,
Yeah.
and you have a bad experience, it's like, damn, you know. But the plates go out, everything's on time, everybody loves the food. There's smiles all around. You send out your desserts, whatever, and it's just it feels good, right? Like you're in that person's memories, whether they realize who you are as a person or not.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's so cool,
Yeah.
man. Like food has such strong ties to memories. I could say, what's the best the best roasted turkey you ever had? You're back. Oh, I was 8 years old. I was at my grandma's house, right? Uncle so and so, Aunt so and so, all my cousins, whoever, they're all there, right? And you have this whole memory surrounding this one piece of food, right? And as a chef and as a cook, even as a line cook, man, if you're making salads, working a fryer, right? Like, where are the best French fries you ever had? You can remember. Everybody remembers. Like, if you can create something that is just as good and send it out to a table, you're creating time travel. They take that first bite and they're back at grandma's house on Thanksgiving. Holy shit, this is just what I wanted when I said I wanted turkey. Right? And how cool is that? Right? Those family members might not be with you, but for a split second, right? Even if it's just a split second, they're back there, right? You're back there and you're with your family and you're experiencing that all over again. And it's so cool. Man, it's just I just feel like it is a privilege that should not be taken lightly. You have the ability to do that for people. Mm-hmm. Right? When you hear about these restaurants where you get line cooks and people who are intentionally tampering with food, right? As a chef, as somebody who cooks, you get that question. You ever spit in somebody's food? And it's so insulting to get that question, right? But it's not meant bad. But the media is portrayed like, oh, you don't fuck with your chef. They'll spit in your food. It's terrible, right? I don't put bread on the side of people's heads and call them an idiot sandwich, right? Like, there's such a stigma around the food industry.
Yeah.
How like you can't do this and you can't do that because the chef, like, man, responsible chefs and people who care about their craft, like, it's not even a joking matter, right? Like, I take it seriously, man. I love to cook for people, and I love it when I get the feedback, even if it's not the best. Like, oh, it could have used this, or I wanted this, right? And it's like I can take any of that feedback and just if you use it to make you better, and you use it to push yourself further and to become a better chef, man, you're winning, right? Regardless of if it didn't go as you wanted to or not. But I really feel like that's where the magic is as far as the industry goes.
Yeah. So for me, I kind of grew up by myself. I did have a bigger family, but there was a big age gap, and then my life circumstances kind of forced me to grow up quickly. And so I've always been on the volition. Like, I love sitting down with a group of people and eating and talking and stuff like that. But I've gotten into this horrible habit of I need to scarf down my food as quick as possible and get back to what I'm doing. And I think it's just a victim of my lifestyle. I'm so busy.
That's the industry, man. Like, you don't have time.
Yeah.
Right? You don't get that half hour break in the middle of your 10-hour day that you're supposed to. Mm-hmm. Right? You worked as a bartender, you get it.
Yeah.
Like, business is now. I'm going to have to eat at the end of my shift, or I should have eaten beforehand. But I'm not going to have the time unless I squat down and hide the sink and take a couple bites of my chicken fingers and then shove my box back over here and get back to pouring drinks.
Yeah.
Like, I got to right? I got to eat as fast as I can because I'm not going to have the time to do it any other time.
Yeah. Yeah. And it affects your performance, And so, like, I've let that transfer over into a lot of my life, and I think I need to get back to the better. And I do eat dinner with my family a lot of times, especially on the weekends and during the week. I try to always. This Sunday I didn't, unfortunately, because I wasn't feeling the greatest when I woke up. But I usually either cook steak and eggs in the morning on Sundays, or we go out to breakfast. The reason I started doing steak and eggs because I realized, like, hey, I'm paying $60 to go out to eat with my family. And yeah, the food's great and I love it because we don't have to clean up and everything. But why not just go get a couple big old steaks and make some eggs, and then it's a real good meal at that point,
Right. And you don't have to wait on anybody else. Like, you get what you want, seasoned how you want. If it's not cooked right, that's on you.
Yeah.
Not mad at anybody else at that point either. Yeah, I totally get it. We try to do brunch as much as we can. Yeah. Especially Sundays. It's kind of a thing that we've started doing. Like this morning we got up and we made pumpkin French toast and bacon, and it was cool, man. Like, it was a good time. And the kids like it. We turn off the TV, we turn on some music, we open up the blinds, let the sun come in. It's a beautiful day here today. Yeah. And we have breakfast and we just, kind of hang out for a little bit. And then, all right, kids, like, go play, go outside, whatever everybody's going to do. But yeah, I really feel like sitting down, and even if you don't get to do it every day, right? At least a couple times a week, sit down, talk to your kids. What's been the highlight of the week? What's been the low part of the week? What's something that you're proud of that you did this week? And you just watch them kind of shine and really be excited to kind of pump their own chest up. And it's right. Like, be proud of those things, right? You did something great, and it might not be big, it might be something. I finished this book. Like, good. What was the best part of the book, and just being able to communicate with kids that way. And even me being able to communicate with my kids that way,
Yeah.
and tell them something I'm proud of. Right. And it's just good for everybody. And I feel like it's so overlooked, and I do the same thing. I'll be in the middle of cooking and I'm like, oh, everybody else has got their food. Chef usually eats last anyways. Right.
Yeah.
So I'll plate and I'll stand there in the kitchen while everybody's sitting at the table, and I got to stop myself. I go sit down, eat with the family. Right. Like, you don't have to do the dishes right now. You can do them afterwards. Yeah. So yeah, it's just ingrained, especially with people that have worked in the industry.
Yeah.
Pull up a milk crate, sit down real quick, eat that bowl of whatever's left over as fast as you can, toss it in the trash, wash your hands, and let's go. We got work to do. So it's definitely it's hard to transition out of that.
It is, and there's a lot of benefit to transitioning out of it, and this is why I love talking to people, because you find a lot of the fallacies in yourself, because like the things you're talking about that you love doing, I'm like, man, I do love doing those things, and I'm not doing them right now, and so
Right.
I wrote it down really quick, like the high part and low parts of their day and my day, because I try to ask my kids about their day all the time, but I never show them the example of, hey, this is what I'm looking for. This is the high part of my week or the high part of my day. And I think that's a really good thing, because I think kids will learn more from your example than they will from you just asking them. And so that you just taught me something. So thank you.
It's easy to ask and be talked to. It's hard to talk sometimes, right? And your kids are going to expect that someone comes home and asks them about their day. But when they have to come home and ask somebody else about their day, it's a little bit more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Especially kids aren't coming home and going, "Hey, Dad, how was your day? What did you do today?" Like, "Oh, how was your week? I haven't seen you in a few days. We've been over at Mom's." So having that open kind of back and forth communication where they feel comfortable to ask me, I feel comfortable to ask them, and it makes things later on that might not be as easy to talk about a little bit easier, because you kind of have that rapport to be able to be, you can talk to me, right? And it doesn't matter if it's about something good, it doesn't matter if it's about something bad, right? Like, we make good decisions, we make intelligent decisions, we think before we act. You always want to stress that, but it's kind of one of those, just like, I've found that it has made things a lot easier. Not to say that we still don't have times where I'm just beating my head up against the door, trying to figure out why we just did that. But, you kind of get the highs and the lows.
Yeah. That's always going to come with life, Unfortunately, I think with life, you get a little bit more lows, but that's what makes those high times so much better. And you gotta cherish them, and being able to show your kids that too is definitely important. When it comes down to food, what would you say your favorite dish is? Just, and
Oof.
I know it's probably gonna be a hard one for you, but if it, and then I have a question about that pumpkin French toast, because that really intrigued me. I love pumpkin stuff now. But first, what's your favorite food?
I would say my favorite singular food, and something that I really don't tire of, is probably wings.
Oh, that's a good one. See, not a lot
They're
of people are lost on wings, I think.
right, and I'm not talking about boneless wings. I'm not talking about adult chicken nuggets. Those that's vessels for sauce, right? That's what boneless wings are. They're adult chicken nuggets. Everyone's gonna argue, "Oh, they're listen,
They're fucking disgusting. I call
no,
them. Well,
I I don't say I mind them, but like it's not a wing. Stop calling it a wing.
It's the hot dog of the chicken world. If
Oh
you
damn, that's yeah. I love killing that for sure. Exactly what it is. It is their condiments put on it,
Yeah.
right? Take these breaded pieces of chicken and absolutely drench them in sauce, and then I'm going to give you more sauce to put on it, right? And then if you're feeling healthy, here's a couple pieces of celery, right? Like I'd like traditional, but see the thing is I like them fried, I like them grilled, I like them smoked, I like them
Ooh.
roasted, I like sous vide, there's so many ways, and there's duck wings and there's chicken wings and there's turkey wings, and they all can be a part of a dish or just singularly on their own wonderful.
Mhm.
um, and I don't know, man. It's one thing that it takes a lot of wings for me to get tired of wings.
Yeah. So what's your favorite sauce then for them? Because I know mine are off the top of my head, and it's actually where I met you at, where we used to make it. Um, it was a Hennessy barbecue, and it was phenomenal. They used Hennessy with it to make it, and that's why they stopped because it cost too much. Cheap asses.
Yeah.
Um, but it was by far, I never got sick of it. Every time I smelt it, and like I opened up that home run in, and so like I ate a lot of it in the beginning. And then COVID happened, and then that was a top tier bar for the higher seniority, and so it took me a little bit to get back to it. Fortunately enough, I was there to meet you, thankfully. Um, but they took it away, and it was by far like there's I still to this day have had nothing better than it and nothing like it. I don't know what the Hennessy does to that barbecue sauce, but oh man,
Yeah, there's a couple places that have just phenomenal wing sauces.
yeah,
um and it's just off the top, man. I hate, and I say this, I do not like Buffalo Wild Wings. I think they're, but man, if they don't have the sauce game kind of nailed down, right? They got a ton of flavors,
yeah.
right? And I can appreciate whether it's the sweet and spicy stuff, or like the garlic parm or the really hot stuff. It really it's all mood dependent, right? And a lot of it depends on like what am I having with the side,
Yeah.
right? What are we doing with the sides? Because we used to do Wing Wednesdays with my family, right? My sister would make wings, everybody else would bring over sides and sauces, right? So we'd just have this big old plate of grilled wings, and we'd have 7 different sauces to try, right? And so you just kind of find what works for you. I like a lot of, and man, stuff like chimney, like
What is it?
chimichurri sauce.
Chimichurri sauce. I never had that.
It's usually used with like churrasco steak. It's wonderful and it's super fresh. But then getting into just like a good buffalo sauce with like some fresh garlic, or something that's like honey based with like chilies in it and like shallots, and like there's the sky's the limit, man. Smoky Bones has this wing sauce. I used to work for them way back in the day,
Yeah.
and it was this like sweet. I don't even know what it was, but it had like barbecue rub in it, and it was just this tacky sweet, man, and it was just amazing
Yeah.
on smoked. I loved it. So I don't know, that and blue cheese. The forever debate between blue cheese and ranch. I'm so sick of ranch.
Really?
Oh man, ranch for everybody wants ranch for everything. It's become like
Well, you're a Midwesterner too, so that's the one part about it. Midwest throws ranch on
everything. Put it on my pizza. Put it on. I put ranch dressing on my salad. I use ranch seasoning on this and this and this and this. I'm sick of it, man.
Yeah.
Ugh, I'm sick of it.
See, I'm a ranch guy over blue cheese. I don't know why. I think blue cheese. Oh, sorry for everyone out there. It tastes like a fart in your mouth. I don't know why. It just does to me. And like the funniest thing ever one day is this guy. We would always mix up blue cheese and ranch because they look alike, when you're grabbing them quickly,
Yeah.
and when they're in a container at least. And so this guy got served blue cheese, and he's like, "What's the chunky stuff in this ranch?" I was like, "That's blue cheese." He's like, I fucking hate blue cheese. It looks like you're enjoying it. He's like, it's actually pretty fucking good. I was like, dude, how do you hate something and not recognize that you're eating it?
I took dressing, right, and blended it thin so there's
Yeah,
no chunk, and threw in some fresh dill. I would say 6 out of 10 people
would not be able to
wouldn't
tell.
like that, right? They don't want the chunks. They don't want the dry texture of the blue cheese. You know, it's easy to hate on something, but yeah. There's so many ways to approach an ingredient to where, I hate olives. God, I hate olives. I think they're the worst thing on the planet. But my girlfriend bought some olives and she's like, hey, you should try these. And I tried them and I'm like, it's still an olive, but I would eat it.
Yeah.
Like people say, I would never eat that. There are very few things I say I would never eat.
Yeah.
Because what is it if not just like a learning experience?
Mm-hmm.
At least take it, right? Try it once. You can say you've had it, right? I tried rattlesnake. I'm not going to go out and be like, man, I could really go for some rattlesnake. But when it comes up in the conversation, well, what's the weirdest meat you've ever eaten? Like, oh, I had rattlesnake once. No way,
How was that?
What's that?
How was the rattlesnake?
It was kind of strange. Texturally, you hate to say it was like chicken, but it kind of shreds the same way as chicken's got a little chew to it. Definitely, like I said, not something I'm going to search out. But I'm happy to say that I tried it.
Yeah.
Definitely not one of the. I've had some weird stuff, man. Like I've definitely tried some weird shit. I like frog legs. I think they're fantastic.
They are good. Yeah.
When done right, I've also had them when they're just
like
nasty.
Rubbery and not. Yeah, I've had that too. Yeah. They're definitely the best fried, not grilled.
Yeah.
Grilled can't. I've never had a good grilled one, but the fried one may just be the breading. But whew. So what's outside of that? What's like the nastiest thing you've eaten? You would say.
You ever seen those 100-year-old eggs?
No.
Oh, dude, they're fucking foul. They're so. It just my stomach hurt thinking about it. They're like a delicacy. I think somewhere in Asia. And they are literally. I think they're aged in like charcoal or something. They're this gnarly green black color. Man, so my uncle bought them.
It's always an uncle.
I'm like, all right, like we'll try it, man. Nope, never again. Like really? I see, like if somebody pops one of those out, I'm leaving the room.
Really, it's that bad?
So they're so gnarly. I do not. I do. That's a hard pass for me.
Yeah, that doesn't sound appetizing. Look is a huge thing with food too. Like because and then smell.
People realize like your food has to taste good. Yeah, but it also you want it to look good. Now there's some food that you look at and you're like, that looks nasty, and it is delicious.
It looks like dog shit. Yeah.
See it first. You're gonna smell it second, and then you're gonna taste it. You want to try and hit all three.
Yeah.
Right. Like if it's something that looks gross, you got to find a way to make it look good. If you can't, you better damn make sure that it smells good and tastes good. Because if you miss 2 out of the 3, whichever ones they are, it's not going to be an enjoyable dish.
Yeah.
Like sausage gravy and biscuits. Sausage gravy doesn't really look good.
So good.
It does. It does once you've had it and you realize like, oh, I know what that is. Right. But the first time you look at that, you're like, oh man, that's kind of nasty looking. Right. Gumbo is another one of those. Just like it's like brown stuff in a bowl. Right.
This is so bad to be hungry on right now.
Man, I'll tell you, if you don't take that first bite or get that first smell and you smell that the andouille and the shrimp and that all those developed flavors, right? And then you get that kind of like that clean white rice smell, some fresh green onions, and you get all of that, and it's just all of a sudden you're like, I don't care what it looks like, this smells fucking amazing, right? And you get the first bite, and again, there you are, right back at the first bowl of gumbo you ever had, right? You remember where you had it, you remember who you were with, and it's just like, oh my god, How amazing is this? Right. And it's just, it's like I said, it's so cool, man. Being able to take something that grows out of the ground or something that was alive at one point and turn that into something that is literally going to change somebody's life, whether in a small way or not. Right. Getting to send out dinner when like, hey, table 13 is going to propose during dessert. Like, make sure that dinner kicks ass
Yeah.
because they remember it for the rest of their life. And it's so cool. Like, you're a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're like, oh, well, Chef Sam, he really cooked that really well. They're going to be like, no, but I remember what we had for appetizers and dinner and dessert and drinks, right? And it takes a whole team of people
To put that together.
Right? And it's not just a singular. Everyone's like, oh, it's Gordon Ramsay's restaurant. Yeah, Gordon Ramsay's not the only person in the kitchen.
Yeah.
His name is signed, right? He gets paid to have his name all over it, but nobody knows who his sous chef is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Who's his executive chef at that restaurant? Because it's not him. That man's on TV and he's selling Hexclad pants to everybody on Facebook, right? So, I mean, like, that's just how it works, right? You don't get all of the accolades that you think, I'm going to be a great chef. Getting to that point, that's more than just being a chef. You have to worry about a brand. You have to worry about your image, how you talk to people, what you've said to people in the past. You don't get to be the face of a company by just cooking good,
Mm-hmm.
right? Some chefs do, and they are the elite, right? Yeah. They're the ones you see. Their names are in the Michelin star books, right? They're just people who turn the whole industry on its ear, and they're few and far between, And those are the people like, man, I'd love to spend a day and just pick your brain. Like, what goes through your mind? Like, when you thought of this dish that just seems completely out of left field, where were you? Right? What brought you to that point? And it's cool, to see people develop a singular ingredient and find a way to serve it like 10 different ways in a whole course. And each one's completely unique, and it takes such a strong focus and will to really do that and be able to perfect it, in order to be able to serve it to thousands of people, over the course of, however long you're running that menu.
Yeah.
Really it's a testament to kind of the will of the chef and really what they want for their own brand and their own restaurant. And it's really cool.
No, that is. It is always interesting to see how that's one thing that is lost to me. I have no clue how they do it. I have no clue how it even starts. But like, to take that one ingredient and be able to shape it into every single dish, it's like, whoa, how did you even think to do that? Like, and sometimes it's knowing food history, culinary history and stuff like that, and knowing different cultures and mixing those things together. But sometimes it's like, wait, if you didn't learn this from somewhere, what were you high on when you were like, hey, I'm gonna throw these two things together and see how it tastes? Because when we were kids, and we smoked a lot of pot, we would always, we were broke, so we had nothing but ramen. We would have ramen noodles, and we would think of different ways to make ramen noodles. And I'll never forget my buddy that's like, dude, fuck the water. Sorry for my language, but he's like, fuck the water. Empty the water out, throw some butter in there, and throw some garlic in there. It's the best thing you'll ever eat. And I ate that for like 5 years because of that.
Ramen is it's such a slept on ingredient, man. Like, you think you got to just put water and powder. No way. I've had ramen for breakfast. I've had ramen, like, we've done stir fry. We've added it to soups. Like, it's such an ingredient. And you can, like, if you go to the Asian markets, which, by the way, are like the best place to find cool ingredients.
Yeah.
Right. International markets that sell from everywhere. Just go up and down the aisles. And I like look at stuff and I'm like, I don't know what this is. Do a quick Google search and I'm like, I'm going to buy that. Like, I'm going to buy like all these different ancient grains, amaranth and like all this kind of stuff. And like, I've never had that before. How do I cook it? Right. And then you cook it the first time and you're like, that's not right. Do it again. Right. And it's just one of those, like, if you really like the ingredient, you take your knowledge from other ingredients that are similar, right? And like, I'm going to apply this to this. And if it doesn't work, like, okay, what are we going to try a little bit different next time? And then you just kind of, you got to just whittle your way down, right? And you got to do it in small batches, which is harder because then you get it down in a small batch. Now it's like, okay, I got to figure out how to make a big batch of this because I'm serving it to multiple people, right? It's not just me and one other person. And it's just cool, man. And it's really just turning stuff on its ear. Like, this place I was at here in Ohio, was working with desserts one day, and having a conversation with my sous chef about breakfast. And one of my favorite breakfasts growing up down south is grits, eggs, and bacon. Right? Just it's hearty, sticks to your ribs, And I was like, how can I put grits into dessert? Right? And so I'm like, I'm gonna figure this out. And I ended up doing like a dark chocolate grits, right? Like it was, man, it was like eating warm brownie batter.
Oh.
Um, and everybody's like chocolate grits, and I'm like, I know it sounds really. I was like, but you got to trust me, And it was chocolate grits with candied orange peel, a little bit of whipped cream, and a chocolate biscotti. And
Oh,
it
dude.
was one of those where like everybody that tried it was just like, what the hell just happened? Chocolate lava cake without cake,
Yeah.
just a bowl. And it was so good, and it never made it onto the menu. Right? It never turned into something that we ended up putting on the menu. It was one of those like people would come in and hey, can you make me some chocolate grits? I'm like, yeah, give me like 25 minutes, I'll knock it out for you. We did deep fried cornbread for dessert. We had extra cornbread one day. I had a cook. I'm telling you, man, listen, this cook used to drive me nuts. Right? Good kid, well-meaning. He's just very green. And we would have to go over stuff 100 times. And we had these, we would make a jalapeno and cheddar cornbread. We cut it into cubes, and we do it like a quick fry on it just to get it nice and crispy. And I was like, hey, I need you to drop an order of cornbread, get it fried for me. Well, he takes a piece of our cornbread and thing in the fryer and puts it on a plate. And I was just like, what the that? And he's like, it's fried cornbread. I was like, well, yeah, it is, but that's drop some jalapeno cornbread for me. Drops the jalapeno cornbread. And I'm looking at it, and I'm just kind of like, what does this taste like? And I took a bite of it, and I was like, it tastes like cornflakes. And I'm like, what does this taste like with cinnamon sugar on it? I tasted it, and I was like, now it tastes like Cinnamon Toast Crunch. So I'm like, okay, we're going to play with this later.
Dude.
And ended up making out of fried cornbread. And when I tell you my dessert sales tripled in the month. The amount of prep my prep guys were having to make cornbread, they were so pissed off. So tired of making cornbread. I was like, I get it, but man, we're killing it right now with this fried cornbread. And it's just kind of one of those things. It just happens. Sometimes it's just like, I don't know how this all came about, but damn if it doesn't work.
You got a little genius in hiding there, man. It's funny though how certain things like that work out. Cause like I think if you were to look at some of like the coolest things that we have around, a lot of them were kind of found by mistake, and like, I'm not talking about the wheel because that was obviously very intentional and stuff like that. But like some of these little cool, like, for me, a fidget spinner, it's something that seemed like it's so stupid, so little. It's a thing that can distract kids. But back to the ADHD thing, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, what is that? Give it to me. Because I used to smoke cigarettes, and I would sit there with a lighter, and I would do this.
Yep, absolutely, all day long.
Nonstop.
You're going to do it with the vape all day.
Yeah, and so when I saw that, I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, give me that thing. And it did. It literally helped me focus. I would sit there while I ran warehouses for a while, and I remember I was trying to figure out how to automate a system for radial. They actually were the first people to distribute Skims, and you probably don't know what that is, but Skims is Kim Kardashian's brand, super, super huge. Like the first year they did quadruple what they projected to do. But I was sitting there like, we are working off a paper system, working with a with what's going to be $1 billion company, we need to get off the paper system because we're paying someone to write something on a fucking whiteboard for 8 hours a day. I can get this automated. And so I went digging through some failed systems they tried, and I was like, this one should work. Why isn't it working? He's like, I couldn't find where to pull the um what is being scanned through. I'm like, well, everything is scanned at a point for the package to understand which way to push it on the belt. So take that information. And this was a software engineer I was explaining this to. I was like, you need to take that, get it to pull into here. And the whole time it was because I was able to focus because I had found that fidget spinner. And I was just sitting there just twirling away with it. And I remember he's like, I think you have some interference on your side. I keep hearing this ticking noise. I'm like, no, that's just the fidget spinner. But it's like something like that. You know what I mean? It's someone took something that was probably looked so stupid and they made a good amount of money on it for a little bit. And granted, they probably aren't making money on it anymore. But you know that cornbread is almost the same thing. It came from a mistake from I guess it's kind of a bad example, but it's where my ADHD head went. But dude, that's how I have a passion for cornbread, even bad cornbread. I just love cornbread. I don't know why. I do feel like ever since I was young, I was never meant to grow up around a city because I'm in the southwest suburbs of Chicago. I felt like I belong out in the country. My food preference has always been more country. I think I have more of like a country mentality where like I want to help people. Where like if I see you walking on the street and I see you drop something, I'm gonna run over and pick it up for you, you know. And I was at the apple orchard yesterday, and literally it was me and my two kids, and we were going around, and like so many random people just like stepped over to help me with like the stroller because I was going through the corn maze with the stroller, and I was like, I'm sick of this, I'm busting through the side. And so I had this guy literally make me a whole little path and then pick up the stroller with my son in it and carry me through. And it's like that's that southern mentality, like, hey, I'm gonna help this guy out because he needs it. And so all time, you know, I know you mentioned that you love grits, eggs, and bacon. I've never been a huge fan of grits. I don't know why. I think I probably never had them prepared well. Um, and but still, I would never be against trying it. I'm actually interested to try. I would love to figure out how to make some of that. Well, what was it? The grits.
Chocolate grits.
There you go. I couldn't think of the word. I don't know why. I could remember biscotti, but not chocolate. Um, but yeah, no, that would be super awesome to try. One thing I wanted to circle back to before we get too far away from it, and I forget pumpkin French toast. Can you explain that a little bit because that sounds phenomenal, and we're right in October with pumpkin craze right now, so I think it fits perfect.
For lack of better words, I'm that basic bitch, man. Give me everything pumpkin. The apples. I wait for here. So you've had like that cinnamon swirl raisin toast bread.
Yeah, yeah.
The same company that makes that comes out with a pumpkin one every year. Okay, so I get that. Your usual French toast setup, eggs, cream. Put your spices in there, and I take a couple tablespoons of the pumpkin coffee creamer
Ooh.
to the wet mixture, and then a spoonful or two of just canned pumpkin. Stir that in, and soak your bread. Stick it on the griddle, and let it go. Right when you put it down, give the wet side a sprinkle, a little bit of cinnamon sugar, and then when you flip it, you get this nice, like tacky, sticky, caramelized pumpkin top on it, and man, it's pretty killer.
That sounds phenomenal. I'm making that next weekend.
Do it.
Dude, so I'm probably gonna text you too to ask for like if you could give me a detail. I'm not. I love to cook. I can follow recipes really well, but I don't have enough time, unfortunately, to dedicate myself to become really really good at cooking. But I do love it, and that sounds phenomenal, and I know my kids would love it. And so I definitely want to try that one out. That sounds so good. Um, oh man, that sounds amazing. So how'd you find that? How'd you come up with that one, or is that something that someone showed you, or you just threw stuff together?
Yeah, I want. Well, okay, so my girlfriend bought the pumpkin swirl bread
Yeah.
toast deal, so it's just kind of came out of it.
That's super awesome, man. That is so good.
Love it when
Um,
it's like for dinner, and it's like, oh, we're doing what's that show called where they get the basket of stuff.
I
Um,
know what you're talking about. Where they, yeah, and they have to make something from it.
like open up the cabinets, and I'm like, what do we have? Like, okay, I got a starch. Okay, I got a protein. What do I got for veggies? And it's like, all right, how can I put this all together? Right, and then we just see what shows up.
Yeah,
Um, Man, it's great.
that's super cool. That has to be fun with it. So, if you don't mind me asking, how old are your children?
10 and 8.
Oh, that's a fun age then too, because do they like helping in the kitchen and stuff?
Yes and no.
Hmm.
I'm
Say it.
I'm a bit intense.
Oh, gotcha,
Um,
gotcha.
like, hey, wash your hands. You know, so I kind of, if there's room for multiple people, I'm like, let's get it for sure.
Hmm.
Not huge, so I can have like one other person in there. Two, if everybody's conscious of where everyone's at. But when everybody starts tripping on each other, I'm like, all right, clear out. You know
Yeah,
that. So we do what we can. I can't say that I should cook with them more than I do. But again, it's kind of a almost like a trigger for me.
yeah.
I'm just all out on the counter. It's because they're kids; they don't know better. But I got to get over my own shit to in order to be able to actually enjoy doing that with them. It's difficult.
I can imagine, man, because like no, it's hard with kids too, because like you want, you every unfortunately time is our biggest enemy, and when it comes down to showing someone else to do something, it takes more time, and if we don't plan that out, I know I never would have time to show them how to cook stuff. Like it's just unfortunate, you know what I mean? Uh, and so when it comes to the amount of detail that I'm sure you're used to, it adds a whole other level of how hard it could be and how much time it will take. So I get it completely. And honestly, I I'm wondering how do people like your parents gave you the room to learn how to cook too. It's like I I'm struggling with even like fathoming a way for like me to even try to do that, And
I agree because
it's
I was like, "Can I cook?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Like, all right, please don't make a mess out of the kid. And then it's a mess. But
yeah.
something right, and she's so proud of it. I made this. You gonna try it? I'm like, "Yep." I try it, and I'm like, "It's so good."
It's so good.
Can you give me some more? Um, it, man, they're both great. My daughter definitely more interested in cooking, I think, but she's also uh, will eat a lot more. My son is very, and God bless me with a son that loves chicken nuggets and ketchup, and that's really about the extent of it. He doesn't eat too much.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like is some sort of universal karma for something I did later in my life because I want to cook dinner, but I know if I do, I'm going to have to make something else as well. You know?
Make some chicken nuggets on the side. My son's a sauce kid. I don't know
Yeah,
why. I'm like, dude, you better not be a paste eater. Come on, don't do that to me. Because this kid, any type of sauce, anything that looks like ranch, he wants it. And like, he's the type of kid that will dip his something in ranch and just lick the ranch off it and keep dipping. I'm like, no, you got to eat the piece of food, dude. Like, stop doing this shit. You're not gonna be eating packets like Big Daddy in the freaking in New York Center.
packets of ketchup.
Yeah, right. Oh man. And so like that's the one thing my son is my daughter has become a pickier eater, but one thing like that I'm so happy with her about is I have never I grew up on probably the worst diet in the world. I'm pretty sure nothing against my parents. They thought cereal was a healthy balanced diet. Like we were told when we were young and when our parents were young. Um and
Cereal's
so
the
I lived off cereal, man. I really did. I barely probably had any protein and like um I realized that's probably why I was always so tired in school and stuff like that. And so like I try to eat better in front of them. Like I try to eat a salad at least every other day, if not every day, and then not on the weekends. But my daughter now, for a snack before bed, she'll go, "Can I have a salad?" I'm like, "Hell yeah, you can!" Like I'm not gonna argue that. Like And sometimes it's late, and so it sucks. But there are some good eating habits I've gotten in there. My son, that's kind of lost on right now, but I think he'll play some catch up on there.
That's
Um,
what.
Say that one more time.
So that's what I'm hoping for too.
Yeah, it's hard though. I think boys, unfortunately, we're stupid, and so it makes it a lot harder to drive home things with us. And it's like uh, my wife will see my son and be like, "Oh, why he's so difficult?" And it's like, I don't think he's being difficult. I think he's just a boy. I think we're rambunctious, we're stupid, we develop slower, and so we're a lot more hard headed with things, and so it makes it harder to get through to us. But when we find something we like, we for sure drill down on it. That's one thing I can say.